Today we have Ekin, and I think John is also joining us from the Oasis Network team here with us. So I'm just going to do a quick sound check. Hey guys, do we have you?
Yeah, well, nice to be here. Nice to be here. I know John is still trying to get in. This is Ekin,
Okay.
by the way.
Cool, Ekin. Cool. Okay, so Cornelia will deal with John, and I'm sure when he shows up, we'll get him in there. That's all good. So bear with me, Ekin, for a minute. I just got some bits to go through, and then we'll jump right in. Okay.
Awesome.
So, as always, we record these sessions for people to catch up later. So if you missed any of the previous shows, you can get them on YouTube. Just head over to our channel, search DappRadar. You'll find hundreds of educational and analytical videos and all the AMAs from the past few weeks. So, what's been happening this week? A slightly different week in the world, as we all know, but one great thing to see this week is that the crypto and blockchain community has rallied really hard in support of Ukraine, with more than 10 million in donations to the government in ETH, Bitcoin and stable coins, with also on-chain data revealing that FTX founder Sam Bankman-Fried donated $250,000 in USDT on his own, and Chain.com CEO Deepak Thaplia donated 100 ETH, or approximately the same, about $250,000 at writing. So also PAC NFT artists donated a bunch of NFTs worth over $1 million, while others have donated sale proceeds directly to Ukraine. Binance pledged 10 million and Uniswap set up a free way to send tokens to the Ukraine. The community is continuing to rally and it shows really strong support, and for me it's a beautiful thing to see. Decentralization in its truest form, assisting a country in need while centralized entities have their hands tied to some level with legal and financial red tape. It's an amazing thing. In other news, the February dapp industry report has landed today, and it reveals that while NFTs are cooling down this year, DeFi is showing signs of recovery amid the global crisis. As always, Pedro and Boris will be here tomorrow, 4 p.m. UTC, and they're going to go through that report, and they're also going to take a deeper look at the effect of the conflict on DeFi and NFTs in more detail. So much more happening, all on the blog. Always head over there when you can. So without further ado, let's get to the matter at hand. Every week I sit down with the brightest minds behind leading protocols, blockchain games, blockchains, NFT projects and DeFi dapps. We dig in, we get a better idea of what's in store for them, and also a better idea of the people behind the scenes. But most important, to give the community, you guys, a chance to ask all those difficult questions. So if you've got a question, stick your hand up, I'll put you on the stage, ask away. So before we dive in, and just to get everyone on the same page, let me just give you a bit of a 411 on the Oasis Network. Oasis Network is an EVM-compatible, highly scalable blockchain with 2 layers of consensus, and it also enables confidential smart contracts. It represents a really solid choice for dapp developers and users, but more for dapp developers looking to build DeFi, play-to-earn, gaming and privacy solutions. More importantly than that, alongside Oasis, we recently launched a $500,000 DappRadar and Oasis dapp development Accelerator. So we're going to dive into that a bit later, but I just want to make one thing very clear why this accelerator is different to others. So firstly, the dapp teams will be assessed and graded by members of the DappRadar team, alongside Oasis. Arguably, the DappRadar team are the most knowledgeable people in the space on the subject of dapps, their nuances and possible roads to success. So alongside the help from Oasis on the technical and dapp development side, and financial help in the shape of $50,000 in rows for successful teams, the opportunity is really worth paying attention to. After all, money can only take a project so far. What's really required is the knowledge and experience to make a difference in a highly competitive market. So with that in mind, let's dive into Oasis Network and get a better idea of their ecosystem, architecture, their dapps, and see why dapp builders and users should be paying attention. So, Ekin, amidst all the hype right now surrounding alternative chains outside of Ethereum, let's jump into what I call the elevator pitch, okay? So you're stuck with me in an elevator for 1 minute. I've got a big t-shirt on that says, I am an investor, and I want you to impress me and tell me about Oasis Network and why I should be paying attention. Go.
Awesome. Okay, that's a okay. Well, let me try and condense it in 30 seconds. So essentially, Oasis is a scalable, privacy-enabled layer-one blockchain. As you mentioned, we have the Ethereum-compatible environment called Emerald. We also have a WebAssembly environment called Cypher. But the idea is that we provide different development environments for developers with different development abilities. We launched our mainnet about 1.5 years ago. Since then, we've had a lot of traction, a lot of success. One of the most exciting news on the background or in the last few months, where essentially we raised our ecosystem fund, which is currently more than $200 million. That's towards investing in companies that are building in the Oasis network. Then we also launched the EVM-compatible environment. We included the wormhole bridge. We launched the first DeFi applications, and we went from from the first 12 hours, we got into about $200 million worth of TVL. That's fluctuating, obviously, as the markets do.
Yeah.
But generally, the traction has been strong in this year since we launched the EVM, and also, the developer activity is picking up very strongly.
Okay, awesome. So that's a really great kind of top-down view of what Oasis Network is, what you guys are set up for. So let's break it all apart and let's start to explain things in a bit more detail. But first, I just want to start with your role at Oasis, Ekin, and what do you do there? And also, can you just enlighten us a bit about the wider team and the kind of ethics that drive the Oasis Network project?
Yeah, absolutely. So, by the way, I just saw John also joined the chat. So I'm the BD lead at Oasis Foundation. Essentially, my job is to look for opportunities to grow, generate channels where we can work together with different projects and incorporate new teams into our ecosystem. So, that's kind of where my focus is. Oasis itself.
You said, sorry, Ekin, you said BD, so that's Business Development Manager for anyone who's not sure what that is, okay?
Yeah, that's business development, yeah. And I think John just joined, so maybe he wants to explain a bit about himself and also.
Hey guys. Good morning. Hey, how's it going, Ian? I'm good. I am so sorry for being delayed this morning. Scheduling mistake on our part, that's for sure. I am so sorry.
Not a problem, my man. And you're calling it morning, and for me, it's nearly 7 p.m. So you guys are just
7
waking
p.m.
up. So
Yeah,
cool,
I'm just getting my day going. It's 8, 10 a.m. in the morning for me. These are.
It's good to have you here. It's good to have you here,
Thank you
John.
so
That's
much.
actually great to have you here.
Really
So
appreciate being here.
Ekin just kind of introduced himself and his role at Oasis. Would you like to do a similar thing?
I would love to. I'm the community lead and BD at Oasis Protocol Foundation. I know it sounds like a hybrid role. I started day zero with the Oasis Protocol Foundation. In fact, we were Oasis Labs when I started, and I started the entire community from day one. Day zero, I like to say, before any of this stuff was here. And as a result, over the years, communities really evolved. It was a stepping stone for BD, and it was, a subdivision to a lot of different departments for many years until, decentralized movement, until communities started being heard, until communities started being large enough to really have massive impact in the direction that networks were taking their project, as well as DAOs becoming very, very relevant today. And community is no longer sat in the background. They're their own department these days. And so becoming a community lead and leading the community of Oasis has taken more of my priority. And so when I say community lead and BD, really what the BD aspect of my role is triaging BD partnerships and interests. I mean, the community has the ability to be the conduit between, the lifeblood, which is the community, and the project itself, which is, the heartbeat. So we've got this unique position to bring in anything and everything that the community says, like, hey, this is valuable. Hey, there's partnership opportunities here. And so, handing off these amazing partnership interests and leads is a power that the community can lend to the BD department. We're also doing that for marketing and product and all these different areas, but that's kind of my role. I get to sit on top of this beautiful department of Oasis and guide and help push the vision of where we're going.
I really love that explanation, John, you just gave there, especially if we drill into it about community. It's a word we hear probably 100 times a week in each AMA that we do, but perhaps some people don't understand the strength of it and why it's so important. But I think you've just articulated that amazingly well. Without the community, there is nothing. If you don't listen to your community and what they want and act on it, then who are you acting for? So very well explained. Thank you, John. So just in terms of the bigger team, and you guys are obviously two members of that team, and we also worked with some of the other guys and girls over there, but what's the kind of the ethos that's driving Oasis? There's so much competition out there right now. Like, what's pushing you guys to keep going and keep going forward as hard as you're going?
Go ahead, Ekin. This is an exciting question. I'll follow up.
Hit me.
Okay, yeah. So, I can say that, when I joined the team, like, I joined for the reason of, like, the technology stack. Oasis is utilizing the trusted execution environments in a very beautiful way. And it's something that can transform the entire blockchain industry by enabling privacy, allowing more, let's say, end-user friendly use of data. And that's kind of my, tech background. And overall, the entire team sees that same transformational mission that we have, and we can shape the Web3 and we can shape the industry in its entirety with that. Let me hand off to John to put his
Yeah, thanks, Ekin. This is an exciting question, and as we interview people, because I'll shoot a plug out for our jobs recruiting page. We're hiring a lot of people, and we have been for years. And why I allude to this is one of our strengths, attracting new team members. Over the last several years, we've grown the OPF from, just hiving off from labs, the international employees, including myself. We grew from like 4 to over 25 employees in 2021 alone. And we're continuing to grow, especially on the community side. And what attracts people to our network is the opportunity. They look down the list of the top 100 tokens or coins on CoinMarketCap, and they're looking and they're saying, okay, layer 1, layer 2, these guys, great mission, all those projects, they're pushing the boundary, they're pushing the forefront of computer science. Nobody is pushing it to the level and the understanding and the integration with the most rounded understanding of where this industry needs to go, other than Oasis. And I've been saying that for 3.5 to 4 years. If you look at the history of where Oasis has been, we've been at the forefront, the cutting edge of where blockchain and computer science has been going from day one. And that comes from our roots. Our foundation is a core of academic superstars that are themselves the world's foremost leads in their respective rights. When you look at our CEO, our founder, Dawn Song, she's the world's foremost lead in differential privacy and AI. She is the smartest person in the world when it comes to the technology that we're using, right? And so, that's one attraction point right there. People are like, oh, I want to work with Dawn Song. Then there's other members on our team that are in Hall of Fames for computer science. Peter Gilbert was inducted into the Penn State Hall of Fame for a computer mobile hardware security thing he did back in his, PhD candidate years. He was recently inducted a few years ago. Really proud of him. We've got Bennett Yee. He's an ex-professor himself. We've got, Yernay Koss. He's the owner of the OPF, the director of the foundation. He is unbelievable himself, and that the list just goes on and on and on. Nick Hines is a respected genius that's built Parcel. There's so many members with our team that attract other team members. In fact, many of the team members we've brought on recently have just been excited to work alongside some of these celebrities in computer science. So that's just scratching the surface. I'm not even talking about the technological advancements about Web3, the metaverse. When we were talking in 2018, we were really redefining the architectural framework of blockchain, but everybody was interested in scalability. So we said, hey, we could do that too. So there's all these benefits that we've prided ourselves from day one. Open financial economy, now it's called DeFi. Data tokenization, now it's called NFTs. We've been in the forefront of this for the last 4 years, and we're going to continue to do that because no one else does privacy the way they do. And nothing right now that everybody's preaching and promising works without privacy.
Without privacy, correct. I think it's really great to get an insight into the team. I do this often because I think it's important. As I said at the beginning, you guys are offering grants for dapp developers and other things, but without knowing who sits underneath the sort of, the website and the kind of facade of a network, it's difficult. So thank you, John. That's really, really great. And I think anyone out there listening should look deeper into the staff members at Oasis. I think they've got a pretty well-rounded team there. So let's talk about the tech stack a little bit then, because I can tell you guys are itching to get into this, right? So I started I started off by telling everyone that Oasis Network was EVM compatible and highly scalable. Two terms we hear quite often. So why is that important both for builders and users? Just break it down a little bit. EVM compatibility, we know, but some people don't. And the scalability side of it. Why is it important, and how are you guys leading in that area?
Yeah, sure. Maybe let me start off.
You go on this one.
Yeah, so let's think about scalability. So we have a horizontal scalability. So we have a consensus layer, and like many other blockchains where the architecture is separated, we have the consensus layer, and then we have other layers on top of it. So these layer twos essentially, and one of those is the EVM-compatible chain. And when we say EVM-compatible, it means that when you're a developer and you want to develop a decentralized application like you would do in Ethereum, you can do it in our chain, in our EVM environment, which is called Emerald. The benefits, of course, for the developer here is it's a greenfield still. So if you're the first, and you have that advantage. But aside of that, the scalability, so the transaction speeds are much higher than you would look if you look at Ethereum. The low gas fees. So making a transaction in Oasis is costing maybe 1/10,000th of what it does in Ethereum. So it's it's much more user friendly, especially for applications that they require a lot of user interaction. So if we look at any of the kind of play to earn gaming that's running on top of Ethereum, or if we look at any like transactions that are small and frequent from the user endpoint, it's completely feasible to use Ethereum nowadays. Yes. So that's the benefit that we give to our developers, and aside of the general development environment. And then just to quickly touch point on the other environments we have too. So we have the Cypher environment, which allows developers to use Rust and WebAssembly. We see now a large trend in the industry of teams that want to build in Rust because of the inherent security components of the programming language, and it's also much more efficient. So it essentially is computation much more efficient to build the applications. So we also cater to that audience. And then we have the Parcel, which is a enterprise offering that allows to kind of abstract the smart contract in the blockchain layer while still interacting with an actual blockchain. So we have these three environments, and yeah, as you mentioned, the Emerald environment is currently the most advanced. We see a lot of traction, and we're really really excited also about the Accelerator Program to get some more teams there.
Definitely, yeah. So the way it works then, just to sort of break that down, is you've got the Emerald chain. So is that like a test chain? Is that where dapps launch originally and then port over to Oasis when the time is right? Is that how that works, like with other chains, or it's not that way?
In order to understand that, we got to back up to your previous question, and let's unpack that further, because when you talk about EVM and scalability, Ekin brings up fees, then he brings up paratimes. So in order to get to Emerald, we have to unpack that. So EVM compatibility, why that's important. All the money is on BTC, all the money is on ETH. So that's for the high level understanding. What makes it important is that we can tap into that ecosystem. All the development that's been done in the past, all the value that's on that network can now be bridged over, and we can access that for interoperability. Scalability, this kind of touches on to the paratimes, and that's why I bring it up. It's because our network, paratimes themselves scale one another. So the more paratimes that you create, and the reason why I bring that up is because our EVM-compatible paratime is only one paratime of several paratimes that are available right now, and we can house up to 1,000 plus paratimes. So it's exponential scalability, and that's why I roll back to this conversation. Because theoretically, we are limitless when it comes to scalability. And I know we throw a cap of like 1 million because we're like, 1,000 times 1,000. And we throw a theoretical number out there because, the computer scientists, they're like, no, you have to have a number. But theoretically, they do agree that we are limitless. The more paratimes you create, the more transactions per second you allow. And it is a scalability. It's a fringe benefit to splitting the architecture of consensus and computation. And that's why I roll back, because that's how paratimes are formed. We have a unique architecture for blockchain. We redefined the way that blocks were structured in 2018 during the scalability wars, telling everybody else, this is not how you structure a block. This has problems inside it. And if you just replicate the problems with sharding and any other of these scalable methods, you replicate the problem. So we redefined the architecture. We split the layers. We do computation on one layer and we do consensus on another layer. And that allows for highly customizable paratimes with different hardware requirements for different security computation nodes. It's very, very cutting edge. So then let's talk about fees and why that applies.
Yeah.
Fees apply because you can't have a network with mass adoption with the fees that we are experiencing. It should not be like an Uber situation where we are racing to get our fee through and we're going to pay $45 for a $6 transaction. We will not have mass adoption if we can't have fractional fees like we do on the Oasis network. Our fees are about 0.000002 of one rose, which is around 25 cents right now per rose. That's a proper transaction fee. That's cheaper than debit. That's cheaper than anything the real world experiences today. And when you pair that with the limitless transactions, now we have a system, a network that can actually go up against traditional centralized systems. And that's why I roll us back and talk about that. But then let's move into paradigms where we actually go from discussing EVM compatibility, scalability, and fees. So our paradigm Emerald is only one of the options that we provide. And the reason that we built the EVM compatibility into our network is obvious. It's because the Ethereum playground is where all the developers have put their time, and there's a lot of money in that ecosystem. So to have that bridge, to have Wormhole allowing us to port assets, NFTs, tokens between our two networks to create interoperable DeFi, that's really, really important. We have other paradigms that are being launched. Smart contracts are being enabled on Cypher. That's going to open the door to a new technology for blockchain that's never before existed. This is adding privacy to smart contracts. This is where we're getting crazy with everybody talking about roll-ups and all these other things for the other layer ones that are trying to do this. We, in fact, mentioning roll-ups, going back to 2018, when I say we redefined architecture of blocks and really looked at the forefront of where this technology was going, we're the only layer one that has native support for rollups built in on day one. Nobody even really talked about this stuff in 2018, but our team, being the computer scientists that they are, said, hey, that's a no-brainer, let's just add that. And then 4 years later, here everybody else is like, oh, we should add that. We already did. This is like a no-brainer to the people that actually know what they're doing. That should have been done day one, and it was.
Yep.
So I just wanted to kind of clean up the trail end for the audience here so that they understand now, moving into paradigms, we're going to talk about new computer science landscapes for builders that have never existed before.
Just to touch on the bridging there that you mentioned for a second, John, because quite an important part of it is being able to bridge into the ecosystem. So I take you've got the wormhole bridge that's there. So just to inform
everybody, bridge now as well.
Yes, of course. So that basically means that traders can bring their ERC20s onto Oasis and trade over there, fundamentally, right? The lower fees.
We have our Emerald layer. So our EVM compatible paradigm is called Emerald. We're going with a really cool gemstone theme for our paradigms. So we've got Emerald, and we have a new one coming out. Actually, I almost slipped it out. There's a secret one being built right now by the team that I can't tell you the name of. There's a presentation going on today, actually, to show the rest of the team about. So it's a secret within the secret that this is being built, and it's being shown today in an hour, actually. So I'm super excited.
Wow.
To present that to us. But yeah, that's Emerald, and we've got Cypher. Ekin, do you want to chime in a little bit and talk about these?
Yeah, sure. Essentially, both of these are. So when they're paradigms, it means that they have their own validator set and they produce their independent blocks. It doesn't have to be that way. So in our, for the developer audience here. In our Oasis SDK, it's possible to specify when you generate a paradigm that it is, it doesn't have validator sets or it does have a validator set. For both Cypher and Emerald, they have their own validator sets and they support, as John alluded before, a specific technical configuration. And what's unique about Cypher is that all the nodes in the network, so all the validators that support Cypher, they have to have the Intel SGX compatibility. And so the Intel SGX itself, to those who are not familiar, It's a trusted execution environment. It's an enclave that essentially functions as a black box. So when you take a smart contract and you put it in the black box, so it's this hardware enclave, like the same that exists in mobile phones for encryption purposes, or in your computer as well. So like when you take a smart contract and you put it inside and do the execution in there, it effectively means that you put an input in, something happens, and you get the output out. And in this method, like it's possible for the validators all to agree on the state of the network, so that they can verify the transactions to be correct that arrive from when they look at the history of the blocks, but that they don't really know what's going on. So if you think about imagine like a NFT, for example, and this NFT, you don't want to show who the owner is. Right. Well, you can do it this way. So you can have like a NFT that has an owner, but nobody actually has access to it. But that the owner can still, prove that they are the owner, or they can transfer the ownership to another account or fractionalize it. So this is kind of a real world benefit, right? Because imagine if you have like a super expensive painting, like you don't necessarily want to broadcast to the entire world, which an open blockchain does, by the way. You can look at the data what's there and see that this expensive painting is owned by this person, because that invites a bunch of people to their home, for very negative purposes. So these, and you were saying?
No, I think that's a really good point, because something it's very blockchain is so transparent, and you can literally sort of open up a person's wallet if you've got the address and find out how much money they have, what NFTs they have, and it all seems a little bit intrusive, but it's just part of the system, isn't it? But the way that certain people would want to lock that off or apply some privacy there seems rather logical to me over time. That at this stage people are still kind of excited about the openness, but as time moves forward, there'll be a need.
It's one of the blockers. It's definitely one of the blockers for mass adoption. Not having privacy within the ecosystem of blockchain prevents us from enterprise adoption. It prevents us from traditional financial adoption, and it prevents just regular people from being able to use it like we use assets in our real life, digital assets and regular assets. There is a huge economy movement coming with the digital economy and our digital selves and everything that we hold value to in the physical world. There will be a digital equivalent at some point, one way or another. And so a lot of the things that we pride ourselves on in the physical world that require privacy, like say your home, the place that you live, land that you might own, these are exactly the same issues that we're going to face in the digital world. People are going to want to have the ability to hide certain details of their life, show certain networks within their digital, friend system, different sides to themselves. You're going to want to be able to wear your digital jewelry out into your metaverse and have only your close circle say hello and be able to see it, so that people don't follow you back to your digital house and rob you. There's going to be a lot of movements that are coming that's really exciting. But talking about TEEs, let's just say for a second, TEEs are the holy grail of computer science. And before blockchain existed, they weren't sure how TEEs could really revolutionize computer science. Yang Song had been researching this for the better part of her entire career at UC Berkeley. She's a professor there. And when blockchain came out, she saw this as the opportunity for her to implement her entire lifetime's research into blockchain, because it was the missing piece that would allow her to use differential privacy the way that we're using it with Parcel. So Parcel Paradigm is another one of them. We've got Emerald, we've got Cypher, we've got Parcel. Cypher is having smart contracts enabled very soon. It will be our WASM-based environment for privacy. And then Parcel is its own amazing animal. And Parcel is basically the use of this TEE, the differential privacy, cloud MPC, all the cutting edge computer science privacy aspects in that field. And it allows you to do all this magic with data that people never before were able to do. And for some of the audience to understand this, medical records are one of the easiest to explain. And if the three of us speakers were different hospitals, and we were all representing, we're CEOs of different hospitals in different states or provinces or countries, we would be legally restricted information that we would be allowed to share, even if we were collaborating on the same disease, trying to come up with a cure. I could maybe in confidence tell you a few details of a case study that I've run, but there is no way legally that I could share any of the data that I've accrued over my case study with either of you. Even if the both of you ran your own exact case study on the exact same disease, we could not share any information legally. And that is what's holding back the health industry for decades, is that the fact that, you know, you've got to put up your own money, your own case study, your own patients, and try to come up with a solution that then competes in pharmaceutical environments against everybody else for a cash prize. Parcel allows universities to share these records without ever losing ownership of them or exposing the data itself. They can use differential privacy and TEs using Parcel to run data sets, data queries on data sets that are provided by blockchain to allow them to crunch statistics on data that's not exposed. So the three of us could share a case study. We could run data sets on all three of our information and come out with a cure that didn't have the ability for anyone to reverse engineer our outputs to be able to understand the inputs that went into the study itself. That's an example of what we're using Parcel for to help push, you know, society forward, and that's a traditional application. We're doing this with BMW for cars. We're doing this with Meta for social media. Like, we're pushing a lot of traditional understanding of how this information and how this can evolve society, but it's also going to trickle down and help us on the ground floor. Like, this is going to change the way that we use the modern internet, the way that we use and perceive data in every context of our everyday life.
I think it's an amazing sort of case example of what it could be used for, especially in the case of medical records there, I think, John. I actually had a chat with a guy called Alex Kahana. He works at Mount Sinai Hospital over in, I think it's in New York, I think. And he's quite big on the medical side of blockchain too. And he was basically saying years ago that people were talking about these ideas and saying how revolutionary it could be. There was actually nothing in place to make it reality at that moment in time, that people were just talking and saying, oh, you know, we could put all the medical records on the blockchain. And that was it. It was that simplistic. It really was never that simplistic. So it's really cool to hear. There are companies such as Oasis that have been working on these solutions for quite a long time, whereas other people are just kind of...
And really are. We're enabling businesses that are getting ahead of this. Like, they're recognizing that, hey, there's blood in the water of industry here, and there's a huge movement coming. And there's some really smart, big players that are taking a look at this and saying, hey, if we don't get on board with this and figure out how to be a part of this and play fair in this new world of a fair data ecosystem, we're going to get left behind, and people are going to turn on us, and they're going to be, you know, nothing in the matter of a month, 2 months, a year, however long it takes us for mass adoption to move to decentralized business models. It's going to be fast.
It's going to be fast. I think sometimes people also think it takes a long time. And if you look back at sort of case examples of other, it's not in the same field, but if we look at something like MySpace, for example, or Facebook for that matter, you see their very commanding position leading the industry one day. The next day they've disappeared, and the next big thing popped up. No one cares anymore. You're done. And they never came back, and they never looked like they were going to come back either. And we'll probably see outcomes like that with organizations like Google.
Absolutely. I mean, look what happened with Netflix. Exactly. Look at what happened with Netflix. They were still rocking CDs for a while in the mail and doing all this. You know, they were trying to push the understanding, but the moment the younger generation was old enough to start getting their tablets and start, you know, it was like, boom, Netflix. The younger generation doesn't even understand a difference. And it took only 10 years for it to be completely erased in society.
It's crazy. It's very crazy, and I think it moves very quickly. And you're so right, because I remember, you know, we as people, our ages are probably similar. We built up collections of music on vinyl, on MP3, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was just joking about that. Yeah, the space that it takes up in your apartment when you look around.
I'm just looking to the left.
Exactly, right? In your mountain of records and just things.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
Vinyl that
Nostalgia,
weighs more
right?
than my car. Like it's well, this is something else that we discussed as well on many of these episodes, is about the idea of digital belongings and nostalgia. And you touched on it there as well. And let's just not rewind, but let's jump into a slightly different topic, because one thing about Oasis Network, if you're to look at it from the outside, look through DappRadar's lens, you might think, oh, this is a very DeFi heavy network. Obviously, the architecture of Oasis does lend itself quite well to DeFi, so that's why. But you guys, answer this question. You're not pigeonholing yourself, right? That's the impression I get. We know that gaming is absolutely booming right now, and this GameFi play-to-earn movement is putting people and blockchains on the map. What are your thoughts in that department? Are you open to these things, or are you just sticking with DeFi? What's the sort of bigger picture here?
Made for everything.
Yes.
Yeah, Ekin, why don't you start with this? Because we really are. We're made for everything. We're layer one, and DeFi is what was popular at the time of this whole open finance. So we leaned on that. We said, hey, we've been boasting this from day one. And when scalability was popular, we were saying, hey, scalability, we're here for that too. NFTs, we're going to change the game with data tokenization and putting, creating Vault NFTs. And then with Web3, we're enabling this as well with privacy. Everything in the metaverse will come full circle with requiring privacy. So we're at the forefront of every single industry within blockchain. But Ekin, why don't you get into some specifics? Because I could talk all day on that.
Yeah, man. As you said, like if you look at DappRadar, now you see most of the stuff is like DeFi applications, so DEXs.
Yeah.
A couple of the lending also launched recently. Like, yeah, it's true. That's where we are, and I mean, this is kind of also. There's certain steps to take when you build a decentralized ecosystem, at least judging from what works and what doesn't. So keeping in mind that we launched the EVM environment Emerald, we launched it in January. So it's literally been 2 months.
Yeah.
And in that time, our goal now has been to bootstrap the liquidity into the network, because you need to have the basic components of having an exchange. So people who want to buy an NFT set can buy our currency and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Like, this is the type of stuff that we need to have for other application developers to be able to build on it and to leverage the technology that we have. But kind of going forward, let's say, like, we have bootstrapped the primitives to a certain extent. Now, of course, we have more DeFi projects coming in and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's all good, and we accept and we support all of them to come in. But what we do see now is more NFT projects. We have NFT marketplaces being integrated. We have very unique NFT use cases, like the O3 network and the MetaMirror, what they're doing. And then, like, aside of that, play-to-earn gaming is something that we really are focusing on, and we think is gonna be a great use case for a network, because when you look at like the nature of play-to-earn gaming, it has to have the ability to do small microtransactions for any game to work, and that's precisely what we're focusing on. Is that you have the ability for a developer to take their EVM solidity knowledge and use it to put their game together, so they don't really need to go and learn a new difficult programming language at this stage, and then they can leverage on the small minuscule, almost non-existent transaction fee. They can benefit from the very short block times that allow them to have essentially instant finality, because that makes for the user of the application, that's what matters. Like, how responsive is the application, the game that they play, how fast, like if there's a loading bar and it's spinning in front of you when you use a game, you hate that. You don't want to
play, right? Like, it's just not what people are used to. They're not. We've come a long way since loading bars, and they don't want to see it anymore, do they?
Yeah, and that's the problem. I mean, even you do like this is a very like a maximalist or like a extreme example, but I mean, Bitcoin still we're looking at for actual finality. If you exclude the SPV wallets, we're talking about 1 hour.
Yeah.
So you cannot build a game on that, and you cannot. So that's the reason Also knowing that the gaming industry is growing a lot, so we know that our ecosystem fund participants as well, so those are available in the oasisprotocol.org foundation's website. We know that our fund members, they're particularly interested in play-to-earn gaming. And that's an area that we really want to focus on currently. So, even if there's some people in the audience, this is the perfect moment to come in and build your gaming application on Oasis. Maybe, John, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely time for gambling, like you said. A lot of the decentralized movements towards anything that's centralized right now, and look at a lot of blockchain gaming, they're still trying to make compromises with speed and centralization, off-chain computation, bringing it back on-chain. There's a lot of that stuff, like Tron's gambling network, and a lot of the very popular used stuff today is a hybrid model of centralized and decentralized. So we're really hoping with the statistics that Ekin mentioned that we can bring some of that action to fully decentralized models on Oasis. But to get back to your question, the main points there is we're not just focusing on one industry. And in fact, DeFi, it's amazing how fast NFTs became more popular than DeFi. Almost
And
overnight,
gaming.
it was
And gaming, right? We're not talking
all of a
about
sudden
gaming
P2E.
we're not talking about Grand Theft Auto gaming. We're talking about financially motivated gaming, right? Just to be clear on that.
Yeah, exactly. Gamifying the actual financial system, bringing DeFi 2.0 to the masses. How do you really focus on TVL? How do you keep your token price going? DeFi 1.0 was really exciting for people, and I think that it gave us an opportunity to say that we did have the proper platform for DeFi. In fact, we had been saying it, like I mentioned, from 2018. We've been saying, hey, built for an open economy, open financial economy, and all these stuff. And then all of a sudden, the word DeFi came out and was like, okay, let's just say we're built for DeFi. And the same. Yeah, it's that's fine. We're forward movers though, and we were ready for NFTs before NFTs even became popular. And when you look at what we did with George Church is the grandfather of synthetic genetics. He works with Nebula Genomics, and we partnered with Nebula to provide some really interesting aspects for their customers using Parcel. They can stake their genome sequence and lend it to other companies instead of losing their data, like the 23andMe breach, which had hundreds, thousands of people's genome sequences stolen and sold, and they did not get any benefits from that. But George Church, we put his genome sequence into an NFT, and they auctioned it off. But this was the world's first data NFT, and that's where I'm alluding to this. We're pushing NFTs with privacy. This is going to change the way that we're using NFTs. And everybody right now is thinking, oh, it's just a JPEG and all this stuff. And I just did a talk on Twitter Spaces where, the question of what do you want to debunk about NFTs came up. And I said, my number one is that people stop thinking that they're just JPEGs. These are actual three-dimensional vaults where if we're going to look at NFTs being a JPEG, that's just the front of the vault. That's the fancy gold trim that they paint on it to sell it in the store. The real NFT is what you put in the wall, the depth of that vault, and opening up that vault with key management systems, what we're using. That's the magic, where you'll be able to put things inside your NFT that other people can't see or access, but I can lend it to you, and you can run a data set on it, and then I can revoke access being GDPR compliant. So even at the NFT level, we've been poised to change and be a part of that industry from day one. And now with Web3 and the metaverse, we're poised again to be at the forefront of that. Because if you think about all these metaverse worlds that everybody's promising with all these new NFT projects, it's all about utility now, right? And that's it's like 2017 with ICOs. That's NFTs right now with utility. It's I promise you we'll make it. Here's a roadmap. That's all you're seeing, right? And nobody's talking about the reality that how are you going to build these metaverse ecosystems with privacy? How are you going to provide me the ability to have an ecosystem in your game that I can actually have financial transactions and private wallets and bring them back and store them in a treasure chest that doesn't tell everybody that there's $1 million worth of stuff sitting there. Like nobody's talking about the reality of the privacy aspects of these metaverses. But that's where we come in. And we are already talking about that, saying like this won't exist without building it in with Oasis.
It's very cool. Just listening to both of you speak, I feel like a bit like you're the elephant in the room a little bit here. Like in the blockchain room, all these networks are standing around, and there's the elephant in the room in the background.
And we won't go away. We're not going away.
Not going away,
guys.
You're not shouting. You're not kind of shouting in people's faces, but it's.
We're just working hard. We're like the Mercedes. Honestly, we're quality. We just don't like when Toto and Red Bull go at it, and he's like, "We do our talking on the track." That's us. Like we do our talking on our blockchain. We have the highest runtime, the best validator experience. Everybody that works with us is like, "Oh, this is hands down the best." We're the highest held token by VC investors. We have the strongest investor backing almost in the world. When you look at our investors, like these are the top investors, not just in blockchain, in the world. And that's one of the double-edged swords, actually. Part of the elephant in the room is that we were VC backed. And I'll just throw that out right now. That's one of the things that have actually been a double-edged sword for us, because we have the luxury to do our work without the noise. But at the same time, we don't have the community buy-in with the coinism from community-funded projects. We don't have that grassroots, like, hey, I put all my life savings into this company, like there's that. Like some people did, and I'll give it to them. Like when we first launched, there were people that are in our ambassador program and within our ecosystem that were like, hey, you guys are the future, and they bet the farm, and they're doing very well, and I'm very proud of them because they really believed in us from day one, and we're going to continue to work with those people in mind. But that's the elephant in the room, is that our backing, we were able to do 2 years of work without anybody really asking us for updates. 2 years from 2018 to 2020, we built the platform without having to do anything. Like, you know what I mean? It's so backwards. In blockchain in 2017, it's like, here's $40 million. I'll let you know when I build it in 2 years. This was the opposite, right? Like this was like, hey, we got a huge influx of VC money. We're going to build it, and then we're going to open it up to the community. And we did the Rose Garden. We did a huge giveaway of the token to decentralized token ownership. And, we've been decentralized ever since. We don't own any nodes. We're fully decentralized. But that's kind of the beginning of the company that was kind of a double-edged sword. It really was hard to get momentum early because we had no product and we weren't community funded.
Fully appreciate that kind of double-edged sword there. I've not heard it spoken about in such a clean-cut way before, but you are absolutely right in what you're saying, in that you've got the luxury of the money, but you don't have the luxury of the people underneath the money that are pushing you forwards as other networks were being pushed. So it's like a competitive advantage, isn't it? But then again, like we say, elephant in the room has his moment to stomp, so it's all good. So
and we've been working so hard. Like our ambassador program, we've got over 450 global ambassadors now, and I would say we finally have the voice of a community. It's finally really starting to thrive. I really invite anybody in here. We've got over 58,000 in Telegram. We've got over 150 almost, I believe, now on Twitter. Like we're starting to finally get an audience, a group, a community that's really got its own identity, and I really appreciate them.
I think so. We've got like 10 minutes left, and I really want to get into the Accelerator Program that's being put together by ourselves, DappRadar, and Oasis as well. So
that would be a good thing to cover.
Let's maybe talk about that for a moment. So what I was thinking, and just came to me, it's not something that just came to me, but a blockchain is really only as valid in the real world, as the dapps that are operating on top of it and what services they are providing. In my mind anyway, that seems to be a way to gauge a blockchain and what it's doing. So you're about as successful as who's running on top of you, as which projects are there. If you take, for example, you've got, let's talk about, DeFi Kingdoms on Harmony. They're basically running the blockchain. They hold 60% of the TVL, and they're really important there for them. So thinking about that, thinking about dapps, the decentralized apps that run on top of the Oasis network. So what we've done is partnered with you guys. And I mentioned at the start that we launched a $500,000 accelerator program for dapp builders. And the mission is to find ambitious teams from the developer community and support them to build on Oasis Network. Do you guys want to talk about this more? There will be some developers in the audience now. More importantly, obviously, these are recorded and they go out. So please give as much detail as you can about the program. And as I said at the beginning, I think one important thing is that you're tapping into knowledge, experience of people, not only in this call right now, but as John really nicely put it, the wider organization of Oasis. So you guys want to expand on this a bit? Let's talk about this accelerator, what you're hoping to do, what kind of dapps are you looking for? Let's go.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and I'm actually super excited to explain a bit more about this. Knowing working with your team, it's an absolute pleasure. The professionalism is wonderful. So, I'm very, very bullish and excited about the collaboration and the program itself. I mean, so what we did, we essentially thought like, let's imagine we have this extremely strong partner like DappRadar, which we do. So what essentially you have is a very good gauge into the community. And then over all these discussions we had, we figured out that, so what about if we just support the developers that are in the both of our networks? So essentially we put down the grants. So we have $500,000 worth of grants. We've allocated that to 10 teams. So essentially each team can get up to 50K. So that grant essentially is meant for teams that want to build a new application and deploy it in Oasis. So, or let's say they have an existing application, but they're looking to do like, let's say their governance launch or something like this.
Yeah.
Something that really ties into the Oasis network. So that's kind of what we're looking for. We're looking for dedication because, this grant and this program is just the first step. So the plan here is to, there's a lot of benefits, but perhaps the largest benefits at the end of the program. So in September, the demo days planned when all the participants on the acceleration program are going to demo their applications. They're going to demo it to our community, and they're going to demo it to our investors. So all the VCs that are and investment firms, that are in the ecosystem fund and in our network will be invited to that event. So if you are like a developer team that's looking to kind of take your whole thing to the next level, this is the opportunity to do it with. Because we know that our investors are extremely hungry for opportunity, and they see the kind of value that we've been providing over and over again.
Yeah.
And let me just quickly touch on the program itself. We will accept 10 teams to this program. And these 10 teams, are what we're hoping for is to see a lot of traction in the play-to-earn gaming space.
Okay.
But we're not limiting anything anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So that's just our hope. We understand that market is like, you put something out there and then you have a bunch of interest and then they will come and, make their offer.
Yeah.
We cannot control that. Yeah. So we're open to essentially anybody, hoping to get some play to earn because of the what we discussed before. And the teams that get accepted, they get accepted to a very special program. So in this program, we're going to give them the grant and support them financially. But also what we do is we interview each of these teams and we find out what is it that they need. So what is the need for a team to be successful? So just to give a bit of a color here, like some team, for example, maybe they already have, 100,000 users, mm-hmm. and they're looking to launch their governance platform on top of one blockchain, and then they, would choose us. And to really support that they, the best thing that they can get is to, get initial, let's say, capital to the governance mechanism or the DAO, whatever they would be building. That could be one way. So they would do some sort of, that would be their biggest need. Another, example would be a smaller team that has a game, has an idea, has the concept and everything is built, and they're able to deliver it. So in the 3 months, that we allocate time for building the concept, they're able to build the thing, but then they don't know how to actually get the community, get all the people, the end users of the application into the platform. Yeah. And that's, where we would help. I mean, John here in the call is the best person in our entire community to introduce new applications to our to our audience of hundreds of thousands of people.
Just
So we map out those needs, and once we understand what it is that these projects need, we tailor the program in a way that we bring in mentors and partners that can, if they need coaching or help, they can do that. And then also internally, at the Oasis Foundation, we align, ourselves in a way to support these teams the best way.
very cool. I just wanted to touch on the audience there that you mentioned as well. So any dapps that basically become active on the Oasis network are now being tracked by DappRadar, right? So, sorry, forgive me for my cold. The winning teams would eventually end up on DappRadar. So just to give dapp developers an idea of what sort of audience they're tapping into, DappRadar is seeing over 1 million unique users a month. And we've only had Oasis dapps ranked for a few weeks now. And since we integrated them, February 8th, I believe, and basically users of DappRadar have landed on the Oasis rankings more than 7,000 times. So that's around 500 users a day looking at Oasis dapps, becoming familiar with Oasis dapps, and potentially connecting their wallet. So and that's at this moment, a couple of weeks after launching Oasis. Further down the line, those numbers are going to increase massively. And as I said previously, the dapps that launch on the network are what brings this audience in. And these guys are talking about play to earn, and they're saying it's a big opportunity. And one of the opportunities I can see on Oasis is that first mover advantage. There isn't currently a play to earn title on Oasis that's doing great things. So if you have an idea, then this is the place to launch it, as they're saying. So yeah, I think just to add in the audience metrics there, because it's important to know that once this is all said and done, you'll be tracked on DappRadar. We'll write about you, we'll highlight you, and we'll talk about you. And at the beginning, we're going to help you achieve success. So yeah, I just wanted to add that in there, Ekin. I think it's quite important.
Thanks, Ian. I appreciate that. Definitely, the 2 points that I would focus on, one, to highlight what Ekin was saying about the investor access. I've said this quite a bit in this conversation. That access is high quality. These aren't just your C lenders, the smaller VCs that you've never heard of. Like these are the biggest, strongest, most reputable investors in the world that you will have one-on-one access to, mentorship, and real understanding that they see their investments through. They bet on teams, products, and markets, and to have that access to those individuals to push you to the next level, that's very, very valuable. The team support factor, we break it up. There's marketing support, there's BD support, and then there's the community support. So all three of these avenues you would get as official endorsed projects, and that is something that we're getting every single day. Community projects are coming to us and saying, hey, we want official endorsement, we want to work with your marketing team, we want to work with your community. And in the beginning, I was open to this. We got bit a few times because, quite honestly, when community projects come to the organization, we can't vet them in the time frame in which the community wants action, right? It's like, is your code audited? No, sorry. I'm not gonna tell a single person to go use your project in good faith. You know what I mean? And that it came down to that, realizing like security and community protection is really important. But to understand why I'm saying that is because as an official partner going through this accelerator, you would be endorsed officially. You'd be officially part of the Oasis DappRadar Accelerator, and therefore it comes with official branding and official support that other projects don't have. And so there's an immediate success factor that comes with that. When you look at Yuzu in relation to some of the other dexes on our chain, Yuzu getting official endorsement and support is what sets it apart from the rest of the dapps. And so for you guys to be officially put into this accelerator would put you into a very exclusive club. So that's just what I wanted to say on that front.
No, that's really cool. Thank you. That clarifies things. Like with Yuzu Swap, it is a leading dapp on the network. And then there's a question. Valley Swap arrived a few weeks ago. Is that an official dapp, or is that something that's kind of cloned User Swap?
The status on that, I'm unclear. I think they applied. That was a community project that came to us that we'll see where things go from that. But Yuzu, yeah. So the difference being is like projects that we actually nurture from day, very early, like first initial phase, pre-test net. Like Like that's the difference is when we actually work with those teams and we actually review their code and we actually give them insight into best practices. Like we're willing to put ourselves behind that team and help support them. Like even lending ambassadors, giving our ambassadors opportunities to work with these projects. I've got a pretty firm policy against poaching our ambassadors from within our ecosystem. I just think professionally that's not something that I support in terms of coming in and trying to steal top talent into your own projects. If you're an official partner and an ecosystem representative of Oasis, that's different. We do give you access to our ambassadors to say, hey, I've got a job opportunity. On ramps to crypto is one of the biggest things that I promote in our ambassador program. We try and get people into the career changes that they're looking for by giving them experience in blockchain that's extremely hard to come by otherwise. And we offer this type of access to our dapps as well, that, hey, we've got over 450 enthusiasts. The Yuzu moderators came from our ambassador core. There's just so many amazing, talented people in our ecosystem that you would have access to.
I think that Mercedes comparison you made earlier rings even more true as well in what you're describing now. It's like it's a quality over quantity issue, definitely. I've seen, this is what I do for a living. I'm looking at dapps every single day of my life, and I'm seeing them emerge by the hundreds on certain chains. And all they are is copy and pastes, really, with a slight fundamental code change. And while that drags users in, it's also left a bad taste in a lot of traders' mouths, because these dapps generally pop and disappear pretty fast as the liquidity vanishes.
Yeah.
So,
well, and they also duplicate the issues, right? Like a lot of these young copy and paste developers, they don't understand that, different networks have different security flaws and different bridges and different gaps. And when you copy and paste and throw, $10 million, $200 million at something, and someone sees a vulnerability and they steal it, that's the issue with unaudited, unverified code systems.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's an important thing to mention, because like you guys have said over and over, and I think you've done a great job of articulating that today, is that it is a quality over quantity proposition with Oasis. And I think that's very cool to stick to your, and I use the word arrogant in a very positive way here, but that is what that is. It's the way that you've approached your business model, and in the long term, it should be beneficial. So, guys, I feel like we could keep going forever, but we have reached the end of the session.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you both so much for coming and attending the event and spending the time to, again, articulate what Oasis Network is, and more importantly, what this Accelerator Program can offer developers out there looking for that leg up, So we draw to a close. I'll leave it over to you two if you want to have some final words, thank the audience, and anything else you want to pop in there, maybe some links to your socials, other things.
And if you want to lead.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, thanks so much for the opportunity, Ian, and the rest of the DappRadar team. Excited to be here. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. More and more details of us can be found at the foundation's website, so that's oasisprotocol.org. And looking forward to seeing many of applications in the program, and talking to you again maybe in the future.
Yeah, man, for sure.
I'll drop some links. We've got some brand new stuff for our community. We just launched our new community garden. This is something that I had a vision for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, when everybody started dropping their hubs. It was like the one-stop shop locations for a project. Well, we made ours finally, and it's oasisrose.garden. So I'll put that in the... Which channel should I put that in?
We can put those links into the general channel, but we can also add those.
I'll just drop this one. Yeah, so it's oasisrose.garden. Now, this is an amazing place where you can actually see the growth of our community. We've got a global insight page now that shows the different sub-regional communities that we're breaching into other languages. We're really pushing into mass adoption. And so I'm hiring a community manager in the Spanish community, the French community, and then the country of India. I really want to get boots on the ground and grow these regional outlets. Those are our strongest ambassador regions, and therefore they've earned the representation that's required for a community manager. So we're really trying to go after global representation. This is also a great way for collaboration for our projects that want to work with us, community projects. There's also the help desk. So if you have a ticketed system, any support issues, this is a great place to see all our social media, and forums are on that page. So definitely check out that. Let's see what else. Social media, join our community within Telegram, Twitter, Discord.
any of those, I'll drop some of the links here. I'll actually drop our link tree so that you guys can see some of that stuff.
That would be perfect, John. Thank you very much. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, so
no problem.
Follow these guys across their socials. Keep up to date on what their DappRadar ecosystem is doing on DappRadar. And if you're a developer out there looking for support, I can't think of a better opportunity currently. So please reach out. Go onto the DappRadar website. Search Oasis. You'll find all the articles referring to the Accelerator Program. Click there and submit. And see how it goes from that point onwards, basically. What's the closing date, guys? I can't remember. I'm really sorry. It's April?
Yeah, it was like, I think at the first week of April is still open and then it's closed. It was something like that.
You've got a couple more weeks, about 4 or 5 weeks to get your applications in. It's a very simple process. Get them in and let's start this ball rolling. So again, thank you, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure to talk to you both. And thank you for delivering your messages. It's been awesome. So tomorrow's AMA.
Thanks, guys.
All good, man. It's a pleasure to have you both. And yeah, I'm sure we will talk again once we've wrapped up this whole Accelerator program. We maybe bring some of the teams in and talk to them about the whole
That'd be fantastic.
That'd be cool, right? Yeah, it's something we can do.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Really cool. So
thanks so much, Ian. Thanks for hosting us.
Thank you, guys. Take it easy. So tomorrow we've got the AMA with Boris and Pedro. They're going to go through the February DappRadar industry report. They're just going to outline everything that's happened over the last 28 days, and they'll spend about 30 minutes doing that. You guys can ask all your questions, dig in, and see what's happening. Also, they're going to look a bit deeper at what's happening in the world right now, macroeconomic events, namely the conflict in the Ukraine. How is it affecting our industry? How is it affecting prices? How is it affecting things in blockchain and crypto and NFTs? So make sure you join in for that. That's 4 p.m. UTC tomorrow on Discord. Again, thank you very much, guys. You've been awesome, and I hope everybody learned something today. Take care.